Hello, my loves. This video is for all of my neurodivergent friends out there, especially those of you who are autistic or AuDHD. This video might have some good information and insight and some validation as to why autistic individuals tend to be more prone to psychological abusers or narcissistic abuse. The first reason is that we tend to take things literally. We tend to take what people say at face value. Therefore, we tend to believe that people mean what they say. There is a childlike innocence in this quality. Autistic people tend to see what is in front of them. We can be very detail oriented. And when someone tells us that they are something or that they're going to do something, we believe them. We look at the world in a very literal sense. So it doesn't tend to cross our minds that somebody is being deceptive, or that's why sarcasm is a little bit harder for us to read, because we don't comprehend why a person would say something contrary to what is actually true. There is a part of us that does not understand what the actual benefit of that is. We are not wired to take advantage of other people. A lot of autistic people have what is called moral rigidity, which just means that we really appreciate integrity. We don't appreciate lying to other people or being lied to. There's kind of like a why even? It doesn't really make sense to the way that we operate. That's why a lot of autistic people miss social cues. That's why we can have a harder time operating by society's rules, because a lot of them don't make sense to us. A lot of the ways that society dictates people should relate to each other are very roundabout. They're not straightforward. They're hardly honest, to be honest about it. You know, you're supposed to ask someone how they're doing, and then you're supposed to say, fine, thank you. How are you today? And fine, thank you. You know, you're not really supposed to talk about what's really going on in your life. You're not supposed to be honest on a lot of occasions, because that can be seen as rude or imposing or aggressive, or a lot of other things that is not intended. But that was a tangent. Hopefully this can set the stage, especially for those of you who are not autistic. If you're curious about this video or this topic at all, this might help you understand. And for those of you that are neurodivergent, you know this very well. So back to the reason I bring this up is that when we take things literally, we take people at face value. When a narcissistic or a sociopathic or a psychologically abusive or advantageous person comes to us, they come forward with a facade. They come forward with a fake persona that they hide behind. They're actually very vulnerable and insecure people. So they have built an entire facade to hide behind, and they present with that. So as a person who takes other people at face value, who inherently trusts them, when this person comes into your life and they have this persona that they are presenting to you, we tend to actually think, oh, that's who this person is. How lovely. We don't tend to stop and think that somebody might be coming to us with a complete display of false pretense. That is just not something that is in our operating system, as people who tend to be a little bit too authentic for others' comfort. So yeah, it doesn't tend to blip our radar. And that is one reason why we are highly susceptible to these kinds of people. The second reason that we are vulnerable to these types of people is that we have likely been misunderstood and mistaken so much in our lives that we tend to second guess ourselves. We doubt our first impressions. We doubt our intuition. We doubt our feelings, and we doubt our reactions to people. And this leaves us very vulnerable to gaslighting and manipulation. So when you grow up not quite fitting into society, that is a deep need. Like, we need to understand social cues. We need to be accepted. We need to be understood. And we need to be able to communicate well in order to form good relationships. That's just part of how to be a healthy human being. And autistic folk, since we are a little bit outside of the norm, people misunderstand our intentions a lot. Like, people mistake our honesty, or we tend to ask questions because we really need to understand a person's intentions. We need to understand the why behind a set of rules in order to feel like we can fully follow them or adhere to them. We need to understand a concept or an agenda, or or even understand a hierarchy and why that is in place in order to abide by it. Our brains are detail oriented, and oftentimes we're putting together many pieces in order to gain a full picture that might, just easily be taken as is or for granted by most people. But we need to understand smaller components of how something works in order to fully digest all of that data. So a lot of times when we ask questions to get more information, or we're very honest and straightforward about how we're feeling about any given subject, or our excitement about a certain topic is misunderstood very often by people around us. We grow up feeling a little bit insecure about that. So in relationships where a person is deliberately being manipulative, um, that can catch us off guard, or it can just be a lot easier to manipulate somebody who does second guess themselves and does second guess their own reactions, because we are used to second guessing how we respond to people, or how we're supposed to respond to people, how we're supposed to feel. Like, oh, did that person say something? Did they actually mean that? Um, what is the appropriate response here? Like, is it okay for me to say how I actually feel? Did I actually take that the right way? We are used to asking ourselves these questions a lot. And, unfortunately, it becomes a huge problem when we are with somebody who will take advantage of that. The third reason we are vulnerable is that we tend to feel like outsiders. This means that it is a little bit easier for us to betray our sense of self or a sense of belonging. As neurodivergent people, we have spent most of our lives on the fringe of society. As I said, we tend to not understand or operate within the common basic rules that most people do. And so that leaves us feeling a little bit weird and strange and outside the box. Now, belonging is an inherent human need. So a lot of times when a person comes along and they are fully accepting of us, it feels like a huge relief. Like, oh, this person completely understands me. They get me. I don't have to censor myself or pretend to be way more normal in order to be accepted by this person. It's okay to be vulnerable and honest with this person. And here's the catch to that, is that a lot of narcissistic and psychologically abusive people, they will mirror their targets in order to know what their likes or dislikes are, what their vulnerabilities are, in order to use that against them at a later date. But they use the mirroring in order to get them to trust you. This is like basic manipulation tactic. It is prevalent in NLP and other types of work where people will hypnotize another person. It's prominent in, what do they call it, where you're trying to talk somebody who's got hostages. You know what I'm talking about, like trying to disable a bomb. Um, yeah, that vocabulary word is slipping me right now, but it is basically something that people do in order to gain rapport and trust with each other, is we mirror each other. If I see myself in you, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to say, like, oh, you're my people. You're a lot like me. I can trust you. I can relax a little bit around you. I can show you my true self. Um, because you're like me. Like, we will get along, we will see eye to eye. There is an inherent trust there. And so, as autistic people, when we live in a world where that's a little bit more rare for us because we are a little bit more odd, when one of these people comes along and they mirror us, then it is a huge relief. It's a very a special occasion for us. And the unfortunate thing is that we can tend to trust the wrong people, because we are more susceptible to it, because we tend to be outsiders more often. Yay. Okay, number 4, this is the big one. Since we tend to not pick up on social cues as easily as other people, we don't recognize flirting as easily. This means that when somebody love bombs us, that might be the only time that we may say, oh, this person actually likes me. Whew. So I really relate to this one. I, for one, have a long history of being naive towards people who make advances or flirtations towards me. Again, there's this inherent innocence there. Like, I just don't get it. I'm like, oh, this person is friendly. They want to be my friend. They want to get to know me, because that's what people do. We, are interested in each other's humanity. And I don't, I don't quite get, intimate or sexual advances or expressions of interest as easily as other people might. And I know that, or I've read and I've heard that this is true across the Autistic or AuDHD board. And hearing this was really helpful in helping me understand myself and some of these dynamics, and also um, why I ended up in the situation that I did, because I have, in my most challenging relationship, there've been a couple, but the most challenging one, the love bombing, was just, uncompared. It was like poetry and calling me all these, high names. And, at the time, it felt really great because I was coming out of a situation that had me feeling really low about myself. Um, and yeah, I felt like I needed that at the time. I really didn't. I just needed to be by myself. I knew that too. But the love bombing, this, it's obvious, it's clear, there's no awkwardness about it. When people are usually flirting and you can't quite tell normal social cues, it's very awkward to pursue that or to receive that or question that as is, because you just don't really know where a person's coming from. But when someone is, straight up throwing it on you thick, it's like, well, okay, this person actually really likes me, and I don't have to question it. And okay, so they're interested. Like, there's nothing stressful or confusing about that situation. Unfortunately, the only people who come on that strong and who move a relationship that fast are usually people who tend to be abusive. So that is how most of us tend to find ourselves coming into narcissistic relationships. And the next one is about how we find ourselves getting stuck in these kinds of relationships. Autists, the ones that I know and myself, are actually extremely empathic. We might not show it in the way that most people do or understand. I know that there is this saying out there, and this might be true for some autistic people, but the AuDHD, neurodivergent people that I'm around are extremely sensitive and empathic towards each other, empathic towards animals, empathic towards plants, empathic towards the collective, sometimes overly empathic to inanimate objects. Like we feel a lot and we feel it really deeply. Now, what can happen is most people might not recognize that empathy because usually the empathy is so strong, it can be very overwhelming. Um, I know for myself, when a situation occurs, I feel a lot for the other person, but I can freeze and appear to be unaffected because on the inside, I am assessing a lot of information. I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel so much for this person. But then my mind is also like, how do they need me to show my empathy? Like, what is the appropriate response here? What do I need to do in order to help this person feel better or in order to hold them in a good way? Like, do they want a response? Do they not want a response? Um, and oftentimes that can create a freeze, right? Or this look of like maybe nothing's going on or a tensing up when when really like, the empathy is so strong and you're caring so much about what this person's going through. It's affecting you so much and you feel them so strongly. You're trying to figure out how to respond in a way that is going to be helpful. And that can be really challenging for us neurodivergent folk that, have tended to get it wrong a lot. So that also causes an overfunctioning towards other people. So we feel empathic towards another person and we want to make sure that other person is comforted, that they know that they're okay, that we also get it right. We also, again, since we know how easy it is to be misunderstood and what that feels like, we tend to understand the plight of the narcissist or the the psychologically abusive person because of course people who hurt people have a hurt past. We understand what it's like to be the outcast and the underdog and to probably have been abused or bullied in situations, and so we tend to make excuses for abusive behavior. And doing this, I mean, generally empathic people will do this anyway. Good hearted, kind hearted people will do this anyway. And that is a huge factor of why most people end up getting stuck in these relationships longer than they need to. I mean, any time is longer than what they need to, but you know what I'm saying. Um, However, autistic or neurodivergent people might end up stuck even more because we have an even greater um, likelihood of doing this because we have a greater empathy for it. We have a greater understanding of being misunderstood. And finally, like I said earlier, most of us operate with a level of childlike innocence. We literally cannot comprehend how or why a person would go through life and engage in such a complex system of ritual betrayal. It just doesn't compute. It makes no sense to us. So that means that we don't comprehend it, we don't guard against it, and we don't recognize it for what it is when it comes into our lives. If you identify as neurodivergent or autistic and you have also been victim to narcissistic abuse, probably a few times in your life, um, I hope this video is helpful. I hope it helps to illuminate some of the reasons why this happens and help you feel better about yourself. You're not stupid. You're not foolish. There is absolutely nothing wrong with you for having fallen into these traps In a nutshell, it is a completely different operating system. And because of that, it's very hard for us to detect. I hope you found this helpful, and I'm sending you all my love, and I'll see you in the next video.